In the last episode, Roland was plotting with the demons to become king, and when they were about to start a fight between both tribes, Zhang Yi arrives to solve everything. To save Khan, Zhang Yi takes a potion out. In that moment we can see a memory from Zhang Yi, taking his earnings to his teacher Hong Lion. He gave it that so she could stop working with Angus and start working for him, and he mentions all the benefits she could get. Hong Lion was hesitant, but he gives her a potion as a sign of sincerity, since it was an universal potion that could cure any poison. Zhang Yi remembers that and gave it to Khan, who after drinking it he starts to dumping out a purple substance. When Roland sees that, he ordered all humans to be expelled from the kingdom, but Khan wakes up ordering not to do that. But Zhang Yi asked him to rest. Then one of the dwarves says that the purple substance is just like the Roland's medicine. And with that, Bartz confirms that Roland poisoned his own father. When Khan saw them fighting, he asked them to stop, since they are brothers. But Bartz tells him everything that Roland did just to become king. But Roland says that he never wanted to kill his father because it was too bothersome. Then Roland with his strength breaks free from Bartz, surprising him since the Roland he knew didn't have that strength. Roland says that now he is the king and he would bring prosperity to the kingdom. But Bartz refuses, since that prosperity will only last if they sacrifice dwarves' lives. Once Khan hears all that, he ordered Roland to give back his scepter, but Roland didn't want to, since as long as he couldn't forge he could never be the king of the dwarves. He tells everyone that he pushed himself a lot to be able to forge, but everything was in vain since he hadn't that talent, which angered him since the only important thing within the dwarves' kingdom is forging, and even though he was good in other areas, it would never compensate that defect. In that moment we see a Roland's memory where everybody was congratulating him for being good in other area, but they always told him that he should help Bartz in the future, making him angry because everybody saw him as Bart's shadow. Roland shouts saying that the throne must be for him, but Bartz says that it is impossible because a king must be a forger to be able to move the kingdom and fight just like Khan did before. Knowing that he was going to say that, Roland activates the scepter, surprising everyone because everyone thought that he could forge. Bartz told him to stop since he would not be able to hold the mental energy the lunar stone consumes. But Roland says that he has made an effort that goes beyond his imagination to be able to forge. And in that moment he activates the kingdom forge and escaping the room. In that moment a guy stands up before them releasing a venom that covers the whole room. Moto managed to suck up all the venom with a Zhang Yi's invention, but Roland forges weapons inside the room and started to attack them. Martin stopped the attack by also activating the kingdom forge, but he couldn't stop it for long because Roland's mental power. He was growing stronger. Martin is thrown directly to the weapons, but Zhang Yi saves him by activating the forging field, surprising Roland since with that he damaged his metal power. Martin was also surprised and asked him how could he use the forging field, but Zhang Yi didn't know what he was talking about. Khan was also surprised and Zhang Yi asked them what the forging field was, but Sophists told them to explain that later since they have to get out of there first. Zhang Yi was about to forge to get them all out of there, but he asked Isabella if she was okay, but she told him that he should address her as queen, worrying Zhang Yi, who told her that she should leave that stuff for when they were alone, but Isabella ordered him to do it, surprising everyone, since their relationship was getting deeper. Once outside, Roland was bleeding because Zhang Yi's mental power was crashing against his. He also couldn't forge once outside the room. It was like an autonomous field. Zhang Yi starts to forge again, and this causes another impact in Roland's mental power, making him get angrier, so he decided to use the mental power of 400 people. He could do that because he took an forbidden drug to increase his mental power. Then Zhang Yi told him that he was just an amateur forger, making Roland go mad and attacking with robotic pieces. Zhang Yi could stop the attack by making those robotic things stop working, but he starts to feel bad. Roland gets happy because he might have used all his mental power, reaching his limit, but Zhang Yi was only felt bad because of his back since he massaged Isabella a lot. Roland was surprised and asked him if he took the forbidden drug just like him, but Zhang Yi says no, since he has a lot of talent to forge. To prove it, he created a giant robot arm with which he attacks him and says that forging goes beyond creativity and knowledge. Roland, dodging his attack, says that it doesn't surprise him, and since now he saw him as a good forger, he would show him the results from a secret investigation that took him several years. In that moment he raises his power to 600 and he forges a steam giant, surprising Zhang Yi for its nice shape. Roland starts attacking him by shooting a projectile which destroys a part of the castle, making him think that Zhang Yi was dead. But then from inside the castle, a giant robot starts to appear. When Martin sees that fight, he wonders if they should leave Zhang Yi fighting alone, but Isabella says that if Zhang Yi can't defeat a simple dwarf, then he could not serve as her servant. Roland gets angry because he thinks that Zhang Yi is just copying his steam giant. Roland was getting close to cut off his weapons, but Zhang Yi stops him with a strong magnetic coil. With that he manages to immobilize it, and Zhang Yi told him to give up obediently so he could go to his father and admit his mistakes before him. Roland yells to him saying that he shouldn't underestimate him. throwing a new attack so powerful that even Zhang Yi's robotic system warns him, saying that it was a dangerous attack. But he manages to stop him by using the useless wood shield. Zhang Yi stops moving for a while because he was figuring out a plan to end the battle fast, to prevent the other dwarves to get hurt. Roland realizes that Zhang Yi wasn't moving and thought that his attack damaged him bad, so he plans to strike him again. But Zhang Yi throws him a rocket arm with which he takes him out of the kingdom, so now he could fight outside. Roland was so angry. He tries to get free from that rocket arm, but in that moment another rocket arm comes flying, sending him to the ground. That surprised everyone. Zhang Yi forging was amazing. But the most surprised one is Sophus's, because if there are more robots like that one, they could match Angus's power. On the other hand, Roland was very injured after that strike, and he was asking to himself if maybe he should escape since his secret weapon was about to be destroyed. But in that moment Zhang Yi arrives and he gives him one last chance to surrender. But Roland starts to attack again. This time he uses a special meat, a very strong one from the corpses. But Zhang Yi was very angry about that, and he cuts that meat easily but regenerates and gets tangled into his robot. Roland said that that meat was going to regenerate forever until it kills him. Then he starts to attack Zhang Yi by shooting some projectiles, but that didn't affect Zhang Yi, who now uses a laser that destroys Roland's steam giant. Then he breaks free from the regenerating meat by releasing a great amount of heat to burn it. He also was worried because he thought that he might kill the prince. But Roland was alive and he was going to take him to the kingdom to get arrested. But Roland told him that it wasn't over yet because the demon tribe are going to kill them all. And after saying that, a thing comes out from the arm which envelopes Roland in until making him disappear, surprising Zhang Yi because he could escape with that. Once back in the kingdom, everybody was surprised about Zhang Yi's robot, and Sophus on the other hand praises him, making Isabella jealous again. Then Khan arrives thanking him for everything he did for the kingdom and asked him if he captured Roland, but Zhang Yi told him that he couldn't, since he escaped using a magic related to the corpse pillar. That made Khan sad, but Martin cheers him up and they decided to talk about how to deal with the demons. Khan told everyone that they should not be afraid of the demons anymore, because with Zhang Yi, Martin and Bartz they could use the kingdom's true powers. But Isabella intervenes, saying that they are idiots since they doesn't even knows the position they are in, scaring Zhang Yi, who changes the subject to keep her identity hidden. They start to talk about they must finish with this war fast, because the more corpses, the more the corpse pillar grows stronger. Sophus agreed since he fought with that pillar before and he didn't die even when cutting of his head. Zhang Yi says that there are more enemies since all the corpses that weren't absorbed are now zombies, so he suggests the kingdom should raise its fire power to destroy them all. Moto says that it would be difficult since they are facing more than 100,000 enemies, but Zhang Yi takes out a blueprint of some weapons that would be very useful. On the other hand, the demons were preparing for war and the corpse pillar Raymond shouts that the day has come, the day they would conquer the dwarves' kingdom. The three pillars were wondering where Balian was, but Raymond says that he was killed just like Papate. The pillars are surprised to know about Balian death. Cryans decides that he would be cautious when fighting to not end up getting killed. But Sumux was happy because he knew that he was going to rank up. Raymond asks his soldiers if they wanted to be stronger and all of them shout yes. Raymond told them that he would fulfill their wishes, so he activates an ability called Corpse's Call. And with that ability, corpse starts to appear from the ground, and they start to attack the demons. When bitten, all the demons turn into zombies. Kyrans and Sumux complain since he also turned their soldiers into zombies. Raymond says that they must accept his decision since Lillian allowed him to make some decisions, and if they didn't agree, they could just go and fight themselves. Chyans, knowing that he can't win, decides to listen. And then Raymond revives both pillars they're killed, making Kyrans angry because he absorbed them. Going back to Zhang Yi, he proposed a plan which was going to a big mountain to hide the kingdom, so they should only be worried about the front. Once they arrived the mountain, they got amazed because it was huge. But Bartz was worried because that plan was dangerous. Khan told him to trust in his friends from the human kingdom. And in that moment, Zhang Yi asked him to call all of his forgers in the kingdom since they wanted to make a big-scale forge to defend the mountain. On the other hand, the pillars were looking for the kingdom everywhere so they could have their war. But Kyrans say that he looked everywhere but haven't found them. Raymond asked him to keep looking since his zombie army never gets tired. Kyrians asks if anybody have seen Roland. But in that moment he appears behind them since that thing that saved him was Raymond's, which makes fun of him because he had to escape from some humans. Roland yells that if it wasn't for him they wouldn't achieve anything. But Raymond, releasing his limit power, puts an enormous pressure on him. Raymond told him not to be so arrogant since he's not a prince anymore. So Roland apologizes since he couldn't hold that pressure anymore. Once on the floor, Roland realizes that since he is not a prince anymore, he is being treated as garbage. So he decides that he will take revenge in the future. Raymond says that he has not forgotten his deal about making him the dwarves' king, but he had to be obedient, and seeing the lunar stone he asked him if he could still use it. Roland says that he ran out of his metal reserves and asks him for zombies' brains so he could recover that energy with the forbidden drug. Raymond accepts, since he wants to absorb Roland in the future so he could use the forge. On the other hand, Yi was showing Isabella how the demon's army was, so she gets mad with Raymond because he turned the dead into zombies. Yi told her to calm down because she could release her demon queen limit power. After noticing how fast they were going, they were supposed to find the dwarves' kingdom in about 2 hours. Then Martin arrives, who congratulates Yi for everything he has done so far. And he tells him that they wouldn't be able to help him with the blueprints he gave them because they don't understand the final product. But Yi told him not to worry since he has a lunar stone. Martin told him to be careful because that stone absorbs a lot of mental power. And one example of that was Moto, who forged a mini robot with the lunar stone and he almost passes out. Yi tells him that he has never felt tired when forging, making Martin remember that Yi has used the lunar stone before but he has never seen him being tired. He says that he should hold back a bit when using the stone because he might end up being bald just like Martin. Isabella imagines Yi bald and she gets a bit disgusted. But then Bartz arrives asking Yi that he couldn't understand one thing. Then we see the kingdom hidden inside the mountain and Bartz asks if they just are going to defend themselves, because now the kingdom was like a trapped beast that couldn't use its powers. Yi asked him to calm down. If an emergency presence, he had shield machines which would evacuate the kingdom very fast. Then he mentions that he trusts him because when he has to defend, he gets the most out of the forge. On the other hand, the demons were heading to the mountains to find the kingdom. They were wondering why they would hide in a place where they couldn't escape. So they start to theorize about their plan. Raymond creates a zombie and sends it to investigate the mountain, but it gets destroyed by a minigun. And besides them there were more. The dwarfs, using a special stone, they create a hologram where Khan tell the demons to retire. Otherwise they would have to take the path of war. The pillars start to laugh and Raymond mentioned that if they give sacrifices and honor Lillian they would have his word that nobody would be harmed. That he tells Sophices that he is a dab knight since Angus never sent reinforcements to the dwarves. But Sophices says that he only cares about the human kingdom and not what Angus thinks. Khan doesn't accept that deal since they had to sacrifice his people and he finalizes saying that his people was ready to start the war. Roland intervenes saying that they should join the demons because they work with Angus, who was the true king of the humans. But Yi start to make fun of them saying that if they want to talk they should come inside, making Raymond angry. Roland tries to convince his father to surrender, but Khan firmly says that he regrets loving him. And after all that conversation the war starts. The demon starts attacking first, and Martin uses the Kingdom Forge to activate the miniguns and protect the kingdom. These weapons defeat a lot of demons, one after another, but some of them uses magic to obtain a metallic skins and the miniguns can't damage them that much. Moto says that they could not get through those metallic zombies, but Yi was expecting that so he modifies the miniguns making them more powerful. And with a single shot, those weapons manages to kill many zombies, surprising Kyrans who doesn't plan to attack yet since is very dangerous. Then with those weapons, a massacre starts, killing a lot of zombies and Roland says that if they keep going like this they would never reach the dwarves' kingdom. But Raymond says that that firepower fell short and the zombie Valiant stops the attack just with his body. Valiant zombie starts to destroy many powerful weapons without any difficulty, surprising Yi since the existence of that zombie was very problematic. Then the other zombie pillar called Ninja starts to fly to attack, but Martin attacks him with every weapon to prevent its attack. Ninja dodges all the attacks using magic, surprising Kyrans because despite being a zombie he could use powerful magic. Raymond told him to wait because what it comes next will surprise him even more. Then zombie Ninja starts to use high-level fire magic. Sumux is surprised, because that fire does not go away until it completely burns the objective. And it was also beneficiary because that fire was a limited attack. Ninja starts to accumulate a lot of that fire magic, but in that moment receives an attack that killed him completely. That attack was a missile shot by Martin. But the pillars didn't get surprised since zombie Ninja were being overconfident and Martin on the other hand was tired since he was controlling the weapons by his own. Yi wanted to replace him but Khan offers himself to forge since they were going to need Yi's powers. And later together with Martin they start to forge together. When they are both forging the weapons power gets drastically better, making most of the zombies get paralyzed. But when they were attacking zombie Valiant, they could not harm him because of his powerful body. Valiant starts to attack with a weapon which I do not know its name and with just one blow zombie Valiant gets cut in half. Raymond doesn't get scared but he is surprised by the power of those weapons, just like Bartz, who is surprised by Yi's forging. Isabella tells them not to be so happy yet, since the pillars haven't fought yet. Then Suisuo starts to repair the bodies with her threads. Yi sees that and is planning to destroy them all so they could not be repaired. so he asked Martin and Khan to be ready for the next forge. Zombie Balian starts to attack them again, destroying a big part of the turrets, but in that moment they forged 3 frozen fortresses. Zombie Balian was going to destroy those fortresses, but they turned Zombie Balian into ice and then destroying his body completely. Then they shoot a lot of missiles to the zombies, but Sumux managed to avoid those missiles from destroying the zombies with his sticky parts. In that moment they receive a warning saying that the first defensive line has been destroyed, and Moto asks if they should be worried about that, since they destroyed one defensive line. Zhang Yi says that since they already destroyed a lot of zombies, it would be much more difficult for the demons to go through the second defensive line. Then they start to attack all the zombies with all of their weapons, making them seem like they already won the battle. But in that moment a giant corpse appears. It was made out of 50,000 corpses. This giant carries a huge rock to throw it right into the kingdom, but it's taken down quickly by Zhang Yi's missiles. The other pillars realized that Raymond wasn't as powerful as they thought, so they didn't help him. Suisuo was Raymond's lover and she asked him what he would do now. Raymond, very confident, said that he would use his true power, and he makes the giant absorb the rest of the corpses to make him get on his feet. Now the even more powerful giant throws a powerful attack to the kingdom, but Martin and Khan tries to stop it by attacking them with the frozen fortresses, but it doesn't work since the giant is absorbing more corpses, getting stronger, and he even destroys all 3 fortresses. After that, Martin and Khan starts bleeding because of that power, surprising the pillars because they didn't know that the giant was so powerful. Inside the kingdom, Martin and Khan couldn't keep fighting because those weapons consumes a lot of energy, and Zhang Yi was ready to substitute them. In that moment Moto intervenes and he says that he now will help since he practiced a lot. But just after touching the lunar stone he could not continue. After that interruption, Zhang Yi starts to forge and fight with the demons, and when Isabella saw him acting like that, she said that now he deserves to be called a husband. Zhang Yi defeats the giant at the end with only weapons that I don't know its names. Suisuo destroys those weapons after, since they became a problem. Chiron starts helping by destroying those weapons with his insects, since he is the insect's pillar, but luck wasn't on his side because Zhang Yi had created a mobile weapon and he put it in the middle of the zombies, killing them all with its laser. Then, after using a lot of energy, the mobile weapon stops working. Raymond noticed it and he sends the zombies along with the pillars to attack. Every demon got in front of the kingdom since there were no more defensive weapons, and even more giants appear. Fei Li asks Zhang Yi why he stopped forging, but he says that his current forger has been destroyed, so he is redesigning it. Everyone inside the kingdom was worried because the demons were getting closer, and Martin asks Zhang Yi what he was doing, but he told him to wait a minute. When Sophisis realizes how close the demons were, he says that they shouldn't allow them to get any closer, but Zhang Yi told them to trust him because he has a plan. When Isabella saw Zhang Yi being so confident, she told them to stop doubting, and she was starting to accept how strong he really is. The demons are getting closer and closer to the kingdom, and once Zhang Yi notices it, he uses his instant forge, starting covering all the demons with an energy sphere. The pillars reacted fast and they could escape. Once Zhang Yi had them trapped, he forged a neutron bomb and then threw it directly to the demons, and once get inside the energy sphere, detonates, creating a big explosion that even the dwarves inside the kingdom could see, surprising everyone for its enormous power. Sophisis noticed that Zhang Yi had got better since he won the festival, and Penny was happy to be in Zhang Yi's side. If you don't remember, she wants to kill Angus. Zhang Yi sees that Isabella wanted to fight and he wanted to stop her, but she told him not to worry because she won't reveal her identity. On the other hand, despite not being inside the sphere, the pillars got injured and Raymond appears and starts to fight since he thinks they have no more weapons. Zhang Yi's team gets out of the kingdom to fight in the front. Raymond starts to absorb corpses left by the explosion. Everybody was ready to fight, even Zhang Yi, who had forged an armor, and this is how the fight where everyone supports each other starts. In the fight, Sophisis sends flying Chirons with just one hit from his sword, and being in the air, Chirons uses his explosive flies, creating an explosion in front of Sophisis, who was able to resist and then attacking him again, sending him flying again and chasing him in the air. No losing time since they wanted to deal with Chirons first. On the other hand, Sumux was throwing sticky attacks to Ali, who uses his fire to burn them, but it was useless. But then AC helps him by freezing the slime, so Ali and Nanai could fight Sumux without troubles. Isabella on the other hand wants to kill Suisuo by destroying his threads first, but Penny arrives and she gets ahead of her, cutting the threads, and when these two meet again, they start to incite each other. Zhang Yi tries to calm them so they could work together, and then Alina arrives surprisingly to help him since Sophisis gave her the order. Isabella gets mad because Zhang Yi was getting popular among women, but she didn't have more time to keep talking because Suisuo had arrived to fight them. Suisuo starts attacking with his needles ability, where everybody was dodging them, but Isabella didn't want to defend, so she went straight to attack. Once in front of her, she attacks with her sword, but Suo creates a barrier to protect herself. She is surprised since the attack was going straight to her eyes, since her eyes were her weak spot. Isabella was surprised too because Lillian shared her limit power to each one of the pillars, making them stronger. Once getting back, her group helps by attacking Suo, but those attacks didn't work because she protected herself with her threads. Isabella gets angry with them because she wanted to kill her by her own, but Alina didn't obey and threw a rock to Suo, who didn't pay attention to that attack. But Alina uses her magic, increasing the size of that rock and making it land onto the pillar. In the other fight, Ali's team was frustrated because Sumux was just flying around, but Ali jumps using a fire kick to take him down, but it didn't work because his foot stuck into Sumux's body. Once Sumux had him in front, he tries to punch him, but AC managed to freeze his belly so Ali could escape. Then Nanai throws him flour so Ali with his fire could create an explosion, but it didn't work since fire doesn't affect his body. The Sumux uses his slime ability to attack the whole team. Everybody managed to protect themselves using their abilities, but Sumux surprised AC on her back, capturing her. Ali wanted a fair fight, so he started calling him a coward. Sumux told him the same since they were 3 and he was alone. He also says they should care about themselves rather worrying about others. Ali was distracted and some slime started to stick to him and he couldn't escape. Those slimes also had trapped Nanai and they were reaching the top of his head, not letting him breathe. AC was immobilized too and she asked him what he was going to do with them. Sumux told her that he wanted to hit them hard against that wall. AC starts to freak out and tries to escape, but in that moment Nanai's attacks hit Sumux, sending him flying. AC asked him how he managed to escape the slimes. He says that he used flour since he got a bit on his hand after using it before. When he was unable to breathe, he realized that he could use his right arm with the flour to get rid of the slime. In that moment, he remembered a cooking class where they used flour to dissolve sticky things. So everybody decided to use that method to finish with Sumux. On the other hand, on the top of the mountain, Sophises and Chirons were having an epic fight. Chirons throws a horde of explosive insects to get him out of the fight, but Sophises manages to destroy them by using a segregated sword strike. Chirons throws 10 billions of explosive insects surrounding Sophises, but they couldn't get near enough because the segregated sword strike prevented them to get close. The Sophises uses an ability with his sword that pumps the air, making all the insects explode, making Chirons angry. In that moment, when trying to give an order to his insects, Chirons couldn't speak. Sophises was planning to use a powerful ability that once he uses it, he must rest for at least 1 month. Sophises focuses to activate his ability, Empty World, which makes the insects die since they have no air. Chirons start to throw attacks despite not having air, but these attacks bounces when hitting the air-pressured shield. Sophises says that it is impossible for him to defeat him since he can control the air. And the last time he used the Empty World ability was when the human tribe was in war with the demon tribe. In that fight, Sophises killed 3 pillars and a 4th managed to escape, but he was injured badly. Chirons was mad and used his Insect King form and start to tell Sophises that he shouldn't compare him with other pillars since he is the strongest. Chirons was able to talk because being an insect, he released chemical gases which enables the sound inside the empty world. But Sophises couldn't help less because with his speed he cut Chirons in half. On the other hand, Isabella was still attacking Suo, and even when she is destroying her threads, she can't get near to her. Suo was surprised and asked her what her sword was made from. And meanwhile, when distracted, Penny transformed her sword and went through her body, but it didn't affect her since her body was made of threads. Suo was surprised by Penny's sword since it was made from the Beast King's bones. Isabella told Penny to stay back since she doesn't know her weakness, but Zhang Yi tries to convince her to work together so they could defeat her faster. Isabella told him not to forget that she was her queen now. So out of nothing, she orders him to take out the mask and Zhang Yi obeying. He didn't think that Isabella was going to kiss him, and then she told him not to worry because she could handle it herself. After that kiss, Zhang Yi trusts that she is going to win that battle, so he decides to go and fight with Raymond, who with his magic he creates a coffin that starts to absorb corpses. Roland was worried, and to distract him he told Zhang Yi to leave so he wouldn't die, and if he does he would give him a lunar stone when he becomes king. Zhang Yi doesn't obey and shoots some missiles that makes Roland protect. But those missiles weren't aiming to Roland but to the coffin, but it didn't even scratch it. When Zhang Yi notices that shield, he uses his light sword, and once he attacks again, he destroys it a bit and realizes that those magic shields are weak against lasers. Zhang Yi plans to attack again to destroy the shield, but in a moment of distraction, a giant demon eats him in 1 bit. Zhang Yi saved him by cutting it in half with a blood saw, but the demons regenerate since he was made of the corpse's tentacles. Roland decides to flee since he doesn't consider Raymond one of his own. But in that moment his arm starts to absorb him and Raymond says that he was just raw material for his evolution. Before he is absorbed completely, Roland injects something in his leg and once he fell, the tentacles started to absorb him. In other fight, Sumux was losing because Nanai was hitting him with his hand full of flour. Sumux, unable to do anything, was waiting the flour to run out. Ali gets close and starts hitting him with his fire punch and he lastly uses a ray strike. He manages to separate Sumux in little pieces of slime. Nanai makes a giant dose so the pieces could not regenerate. Asci was doing the same but her power was about to run out. Even so, Sumux could go back to his form, since while a single drop of him remains, he can regenerate his body completely. Nanai decides to fight alongside Ali and activates an ability that we don't know the name. Sumux sees those tattoos and asks if that is the human tribe's definitive power. Nanai uses his cooking magic without answering, creating a giant pan and asks Ali to make a giant fire. Once ready, he creates some cookware and he starts cooking him, making some moves and turning the heat into pressure. Then, Sumux starts to expand the pan, making it explode, hurting Ali and Nanai, who now realizing that they are no match for Sumux, tells Asci to escape and look for Xiangyi for help. But Sumux starts to attack her so she couldn't escape. Asci was protecting herself with the little energy she had left. Sumux, just like any other miserable being, wanted to desecrate her in front of her friends, but Ali got up to keep fighting, and when realizing that they couldn't do anything else, Asci asked him to escape and look for help. But Ali told her that in that moment he found a way to defeat him, and remembers that despite he mastered the ancient martial arts, he had some questions. Mike proposed a duel since that was the only way to answer his questions. Having improved, Ali starts by throwing 3 attacks from 3 different elements. Mike, using 2 elements, neutralizes Ali's 2 elements, leaving the thunder element. Mike destroys it using an ancient boxing punch. Then he counterattacks using an ancient fire boxing, which Ali tries to stop it by using a water element fist. But he couldn't because of the incredible power of that ancient fire fist. Once beaten, Ali thinks that he has to keep practicing. But for now, Mike tells him that in that moment, flexibility is more important. Ali understood that he must adapt, so Asci realizes that when adapting, Ali can use ice by using an ice boxing technique. But at the end he wasn't going to do it since his plan was to raise his fire temperature until he finally can beat him. So he manages to create some platinum flames in his fists. Sumux starts to make fun of him since fire couldn't affect him, but Ali sends him flying with 1 punch. Nanai was surprised because he didn't need flour to give him a direct hit, and he could do that by increasing the temperature of his fire, because he realized that he is not totally immune to fire. Then Sumux gets up so angry that he starts attacking them. And while protecting them, Ali told Nanai to escape with Asci. Ali manages to dodge Sumux's attacks, and once facing him he starts to punch him repeatedly with his platinum fists, hurting him a lot. Sumux now starts to worry because with those punches he lost half of his body, so he starts to attack him seriously. But by stopping his attacks, Ali manages to create an opening to use his ability, shattering one of Sumux's arms. For the first time, Sumux starts to feel pain in his body, and Ali was going to keep shattering him so he couldn't regenerate. Sumux told him that he wouldn't hold until that happened, but Ali, already knowing that, starts to focus to use his last fire ability, with which he wants to evaporate Sumux until he is dead. Sumux was angry, so he got bigger to start attacking Ali, but none of his attacks reached him because they got evaporated by Ali's fists. Sumux was astonished for what was happening, and when he was distracted, Ali gets in front of him and using everything he has got, he hits him and creates a big wave of heat. After the explosion, Asci and Nani gets surprised because Sumux's pieces didn't appear to have any power, making Ali the winner. Ali ran out of power and he falls into a coma, and when watching his arm they decide to take him to Master Fiona to heal him. But in that moment Sumux attacks them on their backs with a little Riemanis of his body. Asci manages to stop him using ice, getting her unable to keep going, so they decide to go and look for help. In the other fight, Isabella and Penny were fighting, and by working together they were reaching the Suisuo's weak point. Penny was helping since she wanted to if the orcs were living in the demon's tribe, but Isabella didn't answer. But since she was helping anyway, she was considering answering her. Suisuo was angry for losing time with them, so she was going to fight for real. But when seeing Alina, she gets big and kicks her, harming her bed. When Isabella sees that she was unprotected, she attacked her, but it didn't work. Her body was made of threads and she could repair. Then Penny appears on her back to cut her head, but Alina kicks her, throwing her into the floor, and also starts attacking Isabella. Alina didn't betray them since she was getting controlled by Suisuo's threads, who managed to do it because when Alina kicked her, she implanted her thread into her. Alina starts to throw so many hits, but they manages to avoid them, and Penny starts to crawl her arm to attack and destroy the threads. But those attacks didn't work because they were injuring Alina, and Suisuo starts to make fun of them for not being capable to kill her friend. Then Isabella starts to attack her from behind, but Susuo stops her and creates a threads field, capturing Isabella inside. But instead of being worried, Susuo was disappointed because despite having a bit of the Demon Queen powers, she wasn't as strong as she thought. That's because Isabella, with just one movement of her sword, she managed to cut her threads, and Susuo is surprised because she knows about that. So in order to kill her, she grabs her body with her strings. Isabella wasn't worried about that, and Susuo thought she was pretending, so she starts to tighten her threads. But Isabella still showed no fear, and she used her Demon Queen limit power to cut the threads, which surprised Susuo because she didn't have anything to destroy her threads. She starts to fear Isabella and starts wondering why there is a human so strong. But in that moment, Isabella uses her speed and destroys Susuo's eyes. That allowed Alina to be controlled no more. But by having used her magic for so long, she couldn't keep anymore. And Susuo, on the other hand, was suffering because of her eyes. Isabella, while getting closer, told her that she has the same face she had when she betrayed her. And Susuo, when she finally could see her well, she realized that she was the Demon Queen. Isabella scolds her because of her treason because she saved her when she was a slave, and Susuo thanks her for saving her. Yet, she says that she have found something more important in her life, and she starts attacking again. When Isabella sees her true face, she called her ugly. Susuo accepts the fact that she is ugly, but since Raymond is the only one who loves her, she is going to leave all behind for him. Isabella told her that she wasn't ugly because of her looks but her character, because she is very easy to be fooled. But Susuo says that Raymond's love for her is real. But in that moment, she loses contact with Raymond. She thinks that he is in danger, so she goes to help him. Isabella tries to stop her, but she couldn't. Zhang Yi, on the other hand, sees how Sumux is being defeated by his friends, and he prepares his light sword again to cut Raymond's coffin, but Susuo puts her body in front to protect the coffin and sends Zhang Yi flying with a hit, who landed with Isabella, who wasn't worried about Susuo anymore because her regenerative power had reached its limits. Isabella throws a powerful attack since she was not going to be merciful with a traitor. But Susuo, besides not being able to regenerate anymore, she kept protecting Raymond. The other also attacks Susuo, leaving her in a very bad shape, and Isabella tells her to leave him since she was just an expendable pawn for him. Susuo tells her that she already knows, but she was going to protect him anyway. In that moment, Sophices appears, who also attacks Susuo. Zhang Yi was about to finish her, but the coffin starts to open and a very powerful Raymond gets out from it, getting Susuo happy. Raymond grabs her, but instead of helping her, he kills her to then absorb her. Once he absorbed her completely, he got stronger and now he can fly. After that, everyone start to attack him, but no attack could harm him since he stopped them all. Raymond gets behind Sophices and sends him flying with one strike. Raymond was so confident with his new powers that he said not even Lillian could stop him now. Zhang Yi catches him within his energy sphere. He was happy because now that he is trapped, all would end. But Raymond managed to escape since he noticed that he should not lower his guard against Zhang Yi, and since he knows that he is a forger, he wants to know if he has limit power. He starts to release a big amount of limit power, which makes Zhang Yi's heart not able to hold it, and Raymond realized now that indeed he didn't have any limit power. He wants to kill him anyway because he still was strong. Penny managed to tie him with her sword, saving Zhang Yi, and Isabella, angry because he wanted to kill Zhang Yi, starts to attack him, and we can see that Zhang Yi could hold Raymond's limit power pressure because Isabella gave him a bit of limit power when she kissed him. While Raymond was getting free, he says that they would never be able to defeat him because he is invincible. And Penny was in shock because she used a very strong tie, but that was nothing for him. Raymond, using his weapon, catches Penny to absorb her, but she modifies her weapon to be a rapier. Raymond uses Susuo's threads abilities to absorb her, but Penny gives a blood drink to his sword to grow stronger and to attack him. She starts to get crazy, just like the time when she fought Isabella, but it didn't work, and he catches her and says that he would use her to threat the regent since she is Angus's daughter. Penny was very angry and got free, so she used her beast form and started to attack Raymond. But like I already told you, Raymond is very strong. But worried about Penny growing any stronger, he sent her flying with a kick, leaving her out of combat, and then he gets near to Zhang Yi to kill him because he got in his way. Now Raymond gets out the scepter and started to forge, surprising everyone in the kingdom, and Khan sadly realizes that he absorbed Roland. Raymond realizes that the forge is very powerful and tells Zhang Yi that if he teaches him to forge, he would spare his life. But it was just a joke since he starts attacking him. To protect himself, Zhang Yi gets his brush out and creates a light tower which shoots a laser, destroying Raymond's forge. Raymond gets surprised by that power because when he was forging he felt that he lost a lot of corpses, so he decided not to forge anymore since it was useless for him. Zhang Yi says that forging is not as easy as he thought. But Raymond told him that forging wasn't important for him. Zhang Yi tells Isabella not to fight to keep her identity hidden since now everyone in the kingdom could see her fighting. Also, Captain Sophices was fighting with them. Isabella understands but tells him to be careful since Raymond was getting serious. In that moment, Raymond uses high-level magic, creating ice above them, which starts to fall at a high speed, destroying everything. Zhang Yi protects himself with his useless wood shield, but the impact was so powerful that managed to break his arm, worrying Zhang Yi since the useless wood shield wouldn't be useful for him. When Isabella sees that she was planning to fight even if her identity would be revealed, and although she only had a 20% of her original power, it would work to punish Raymond. Raymond praises him to hold his attack, but then sophists appear and traps him with his air prison magic. He apologizes with Zhang Yi for leaving him alone with a very powerful enemy, and knowing that his empty field was on its limits, he decides to throw an attack that would determine who wins and who loses. That attack was harming him a lot, but Raymond managed to protect himself by activating one of his abilities, surprising sophists since he shouldn't be able to do that. Raymond uses a magic called damage transfer, which function is that the more damages he receives, the more his immunity gets after. In that moment, Zhang Yi realizes that Raymond had absorbed corpses that died in a nuclear explosion, so he asks Isabella to lengthen the fight, since Raymond was infected with nuclear radiation. But since he didn't know when it would affect him, he was planning to throw another bomb at his body. Raymond, on the other hand, is surprised about the fact that he ended up with those injuries. But since he had a million corpses, he evolves, starting to fight more serious. Sophists throws some attacks, but Raymond ended up dodging them and being bigger now. He starts stomping him, making fun of him for not being able to kill him, and in that moment he activates an ice ability to attack him. But Zhang Yi managed to save him by forging a Rupert's Drop. Sophists, worried, asked him to go. Rupert's Drop could not hold for longer and ended up being destroyed by such power. But Zhang Yi managed to save Sophists by dodging the attack. Zhang Yi asked Sophists to let him fight Raymond so Isabella could fight freely, but he changes the subject, thanking him for saving him. He was more and more convinced that he was his lost brother Sophisak. Raymond saw them distracted and he was going to attack them, so he uses the Pillar Ninja's magic. Isabella intervenes, attacking with her sword ability, but using Pillar Ninja's abilities he ended up avoiding all attacks. Raymond notices that Zhang Yi was very important for them, so he launches a powerful kick, but Zhang Yi protects himself, forging an air mattress. Even with that he couldn't do anything else, so Zhang Yi gets hurt. Sophists was worried, so he used a fencing ability and managed to save him so he wouldn't get hurt badly with the fall. Zhang Yi ended up very bad hurt, waking up Sophists and Isabella's wrath, who were going to kill Raymond at all costs. When Raymond saw them in that estate, he starts to laugh, but suddenly Sophia's with his great velocity ended up hurting him, so Raymond decides to kill him first to end with all that. Isabella also starts to attack him, but Raymond doesn't consider her a worthy opponent. But using more power she ended up leaving him with a big injury. When Raymond sees that, he wonders if Isabella had more limit power than him, but he decides to heal himself first with the regeneration ability. Sophists was not going to let him, so he uses an ability to attack again. But Raymond managed to avoid it, the Pillar Ninja's ability. Sophists and Isabella started working together to kill Raymond, who, noticing the tremendous limit power Isabella has, he asked her who she was, but she says that she haven't given permission to talk. Sophists start to protect Isabella so she could attack without trouble, and with her sword he starts to damage Raymond even more. Raymond was wondering why a woman was beating his powers, and remembering the fact that he had to go through a lot of humiliations to get where he is now, he wasn't going to lose. While being fighting with Raymond, both of them had forgot about Zhang Yi, so Raymond took advantage of that and created a corpse to kill him while unconscious. The corpse created a weapon and it was going to kill Zhang Yi, but Sophists managed to save him using his body as shield, leaving him with a hole on his body. Raymond starts to laugh. Then he teleported and took out the weapon from Sophia's body, killing him. Zhang Yi, once awake, wanted to help him, but he was in terrible pain, so he uses an emergency medicine, but it would take some time to work. Raymond saw him in that estate and he attacks to kill, but in that moment an ability sends flying Raymond and even destroys the mini helicopter that was transmitting the fight. So inside the kingdom they were now wondering what was happening. When Raymond realized who threw that, he starts to get scared. It was Isabella, who had awoken her demon queen limit power. Raymond couldn't believe that he was before the former queen and she was going to kill him because he had hurt her subordinates. Zhang Yi asked her if she could hold that form, but Isabella told him that she only wanted to kill him and ordered him to help Sophists. Zhang Yi takes a bit of that medicine Hong Lion gave him, but he was wondering if that would work since the injury was pretty bad. Once he poured it into Sophists' body, the hole on his body ended up closing. In the fight, Raymond was backing up because of Isabella's power, but he decides to fight since his only queen now was Lillian. Raymond tells her that her strength is not like before, but Isabella with just one move of her finger cuts his head off. Raymond creates a corpse's mountain to attack Isabella, but with just one look she makes them disappear. While Raymond was regenerating himself, he tells Isabella that she is not as strong as before, because if she wanted to kill him she would have done it already. But in that moment Isabella gets behind him and goes through his body, taking one of his demon powers. Once in the floor, Isabella stomps the head till destroying the demon power, recovering a bit of his demon queen powers that were taken from her. In the inner world of the corpse pillar, Raymond was scared because even though Isabella didn't have her whole strength, she was very strong. Since Isabella broke Balian demon power, he wouldn't be able to use it anymore. Isabella, knowing that he is pretending to be dead, she was going to take him out from his inner world. And to do that, she starts to use demon electrocution magic, which was starting to damage Raymond in his inner world. Raymond creates a corpse and starts to throw some attacks, but none of them manage to damage Isabella, and she says that she would make him feel absolute pain before killing him. Using an ability, she takes out from him Pillar Ninja's demon power, so he decides to escape to inform Lillian about the situation. Raymond starts to come back to his original form after losing the demon's powers, and since he only had Suosuo's powers left, he transforms into an animal to escape flying. Zhang Yi manages to reach by hitting him with his armor since he doesn't want Isabella's identity to be revealed. But since the hit wasn't strong enough, Raymond starts attacking him. Zhang Yi manages to get free from those attacks by using his lasers, so he starts to chase him again. Zhang Yi knows that he lost some abilities, so he was convinced that he was going to catch him. But Raymond manages to avoid him, and since he wasn't afraid of him, he uses his abilities to absorb him, surprising Zhang Yi because despite losing powers he was still strong to be able to escape. Zhang Yi forges various giant objects, but Raymond was mocking him since he had anything else to offer. In that moment, when distracted, Zhang Yi gets behind him and kicks him down to the floor and starts bombarding him non-stop. Raymond creates some corpses which starts to attack Zhang Yi, so he starts cutting each one of them, but they regenerated. The corpses were pursuing him and eventually they caught him. He was worried about getting absorbed, so he releases some parts of his armor, and since it was now incomplete, it would be very difficult to fight. But he decides to fight for Isabella, no matter what. Raymond now had a new plan and told him that he would capture him to use him as a token of exchange with Isabella. Then Raymond starts to feel a terrible and violent pain. When Zhang Yi sees him like that, he got happy because the effects of radiation were starting to appear. Raymond, very angry, asks him how did he poison him. Zhang Yi didn't want to tell the long story, so he told him that since the moment he absorbed the corpses from the explosion, he was already doomed. Raymond starts attacking him with his arm, but it also starts to fail, and Zhang Yi starts mocking him because he can't catch him. Raymond, angry, creates some dog corpses to attack them, but they were also affected by radiation. He entered in his inner world and all of his corpses were disappearing. Raymond looks for a solution to stop that since his body wouldn't be able to hold, so he thinks about looking for a container to store those corpses. Zhang Yi wasn't going to let that happen, so he starts bombarding him for 15 minutes straight, and his body was reaching his limit. Raymond could protect himself with his arms, but the effects of radiation were finishing with his body, and Zhang Yi was happy. But in that moment something started to get out from Raymond's body. That thing was Suosuo, who ends up being melted, and Raymond starts attacking him because as long as he was alive he could keep fighting. Zhang Yi was worried because it seemed like Raymond was getting used to the effects of radiation. But in that moment Isabella arrives, sending Raymond flying with a kick. Isabella says that he should not disobey her orders since she told him not to fight. But Zhang Yi was happy because she came to help. Isabella says that even though he was her faithful follower, he will be punished later, but as long as he was obedient she would consider giving him a gift in the night. On the other hand, Raymond starts to remember that life was unfair to him since he was a slave while other demons were the leaders, but since his quality was the patience. Then one day they gave him the power of Corpse Pillar since that power disgusted the royal family, so he ascended very quickly. Raymond proposed to himself to gain power and fame to become the next demon king, but all that had disappeared in a day, so that's why he used a new plan. Raymond gets something out of his body which opens his mouth using an absorbing power at 100%. Both knew that the last attack they would use would be the ones to decide who gets the victory. Isabella didn't want Zhang Yi to be harmed by the attack, so she was going to send him to a safe zone. Zhang Yi refuses since he wants to fight with her and he doesn't want to leave her alone, and once Isabella accepts, she decides that they will work together. Raymond wanted more power, so he raises his absorption power, and Isabella wouldn't use her limit power completely because Zhang Yi wouldn't hold it. In that moment she feels that the absorption power rose a lot, absorbing everything, so she uses her demon claws and starts to touch the floor to not get sucked in. In that moment Isabella lets Zhang Yi go, and being focused he starts to use all his brain and he could enter the forge field Martin and Khan mentioned before. There with the stopped he could forge everything easily. Zhang Yi was thinking about what to forge since his weapons could be sucked in before they even start working. But he remembered a weapon in one of his blueprints, though it was in an experimental phase. If he used it, it could kill Raymond instantaneously, but if it gets out of control it could kill him as well. But he wants to do it because he is planning on controlling it. When focused, a little stain gets out from his brush, and it's nothing less than a black hole once in the real time. Isabella managed to catch him before being sucked in. Then the black hole, after eating Raymond, starts to swallow everything around it. The black hole starts to expand, and even Isabella with her wings couldn't escape, and Zhang Yi tries to stop it by creating energy spheres around it. But they were sucked in effortlessly by the black hole. To stop it, Isabella leaves Zhang Yi alone so she could use her real demon form. Even though she didn't have all of her powers, she throws her most powerful attack to stop it. But even yet the black hole kept expanding and growing stronger. Isabella pushes herself a lot and manages to destroy the black hole. And seeing that power, she recognizes Zhang Yi as the hero who would save the demons. Since Isabella emptied all of her demon power, she ended up passing out and naked after her demon form disappeared. Zhang Yi forges a bed for her to rest, and when he wanted to cover her he couldn't because he ended up looking at her body. Then he realized that she was awaking. And when she realized that he saw her, she asked him if he liked her, but Zhang Yi turned around and said that he was worried. But Isabella gets up and suggests to wait until they recovers. She told him to turn around. Zhang Yi obeys and do it with his eyes closed. So Isabella orders him to open them. When he sees her, he confesses that indeed he was her body before. Isabella wasn't angry but complains to him about turning an easy-to-handle situation into something dangerous with that black hole. Even yet, she congratulates him for having so much power, and she is thinking about making him her real husband. But he shouldn't disobey her orders anymore, because if he would, she was going to do unthinkable things with his ass. So Zhang Yi nods his head and scared. He promises never to disobey her again. By night they went back to the dwarves' kingdom where everyone were worried for Sophices because even Fiona was having a hard time to heal him. Fiona uses superior healing magic and mentions that even with that medicine Zhang Yi gave to him to heal his wound, she can't heal him with any spell since Sophices seemed to be a container with no soul. Even when her magic had a temporal effect, he would not hold one more night. Zhang Yi says that there was a way to save him. Everyone gets surprised, so they all wanted to help. But Zhang Yi asked everyone but Isabella to leave the room, and what they were going to do, it should be kept between them. Once alone, Zhang Yi had planned to use the red stones from their rings to save Sophices. Isabella wanted to help because it was about a loved person. After touching the rings, some magic circles starts to repair Sophices' soul. In that moment Isabella felt a familiar feel. After finished, Sophices' body starts to move, getting Zhang Yi happy, who goes straight to him. Isabella gets a bit angry because he let go of her hand. Sophices wakes up scared, so I'm not sure if he already know the truth about his world. Because when he sees Zhang Yi, he promised him that he will protect him. When Isabella saw them hugging, she got in bad mood, but the other came in very happy to see Sophices alive. Fiona, after diagnosing him, she got surprised because he recovered completely just in a few minutes, and Zhang Yi, to mislead them, says that it is a business secret. Because Basil told him that it was forbidden to create life, so even if he tries to read the other's mind, it would be very difficult for him to find out. Penny notices Zhang Yi's red stone. Since the day was exhausting, everyone went to sleep. When Isabella arrives to the room, she ordered Zhang Yi to forge appropriate clothes to sleep. Zhang Yi was getting ready to sleep on the floor, but Isabella ordered him to sleep with her in the bed. So Zhang Yi lies down nervously meters away from her, but she ordered him to scratch her back, making him even more nervous when she asked him to do it under her clothes. Zhang couldn't resist, but then Isabella gets on top of him since she is planning to give him the gift she promised. That gift was a kiss. And then we see the Demon Queen personality telling Isabella that they were giving him a 1% of her demon power. So from now on he would not suffer the pressure of others' limit power anymore, and from now on they would never see each other since she recovered a part of her original power, so they would be one person again. The personality asked her to thank him since she made real progress with Zhang Yi, but Isabella says that she did well. And before she goes, the personality said that even when they are different, they both like Zhang Yi. And just like that, after the kiss, the real Isabella takes control over her body, and with a serious face she told him to go to sleep, leaving Zhang Yi puzzled. But then she blushes because she was starting to accept her feelings. The next day, all the dwarves from the kingdom were thanking Zhang Yi's team, and even the ones from the royalty vowed, as gratitude gesture for saving them. The dwarves forged a statue of them where there was also Feli with her cat, even when didn't do anything in the war. Khan asked them to stay on more day to celebrate the thermal waters party. Zhang Yi was going to stay to relax while the other wanted to see the other women naked. After a while, Martin and Khan decided to take Zhang Yi to a forging lab where Khan along Bart's used to make some experiments with the forge. Martin told him that from now on they wouldn't be able to see each other so often anymore, since Angus could take a role in this matter of saving the dwarves, so Martin could be held as responsible of everything. So Matrin decides to stay in the dwarves' kingdom since Angus could take advantage of that situation to push Sophices. When Martin remembers that Zhang Yi can use the forging field, he asked him to have a real forging battle at a highest level, surprising Zhang Yi. Martin says that in that battle he wants to teach him the last secret of the forging field. And once in the lab, Martin told him to not hold up, even if he was his teacher. Zhang Yi told him to calm, but Martin forged some crossbows and attacked him merciless, and then shouting him to take this fight seriously. Then he starts to attack with the crossbows, but Zhang Yi could defend himself with his energy sphere. Martin decided that Khan would fight as well so Zhang Yi could fight for real. So together they use the forging field and the energy sphere starts to disappear. Zhang Yi wondered why since he didn't cancel the forge, and then he realizes that Martin's and Khan's forging field were manipulating his at their will. Martin tells him that he can use the forging field but only if he activates it together with Khan. Also, they had to use gems to be able to focus the mental power, but Zhang Yi was different since he was never seen tired while forging. His mental power were tireless and he learned the forging field by himself. Zhang Yi was a genius since he dominated all this easily so he could forge with no limits, without using a brush or alignment stone. They are Zhang Yi to use the forge field, but Zhang Yi didn't remember what he felt when he activated it. Martin, knowing that in a calm situation he could not activate it, he starts to attack him but he protects himself with his useless wood shield. Both of them makes that shield disappear, starting to attack him again, and Martin shouts him to remember what he felt when he activated it. So Zhang Yi concentrates to remember what he felt. Then he realizes that every time he activated the forge was because he wanted to be stronger to help Isabella. With all that remembered, Zhang Yi activates his forging field and with just one hand he could vanish Khan's and Martin's forge. Once he realized how strong he was, he said that it was like having the power of God. Both of them couldn't keep fighting, so they told him that they made him learn the forging field so he could activate it not just when in danger. They also told him that he is the only one who can forge with useless wood so easily. Even them can only forge with useless wood only in the forging field. They both lost their hair by forging a piece of useless wood, and even Martin missed his handsomeness. Zhang Yi wanted to help them by forging some seats, but he was surprised because he couldn't do it. Khan told him that first he must consolidate everything he learned. Since they trust in Zhang Yi, they know they will do it, making them happy. And now that the relation between tribes were in tension, it would be very difficult for them to see each other. Zhang Yi thanks them for they taught him and did for him. And that how this third part of the manhwa ends. If you want a fifth part, comment below with the word wife. Also don't forget to subscribe, like the video and ring the bell. Please comment below the next manhwa you want me to resume for you in the next video.